Trust is an important part of a healthy relationship. Trusting someone means that you think they're reliable. Lanre Olusola is here to help us understand how best couples can begin to build that trust once it's been severed by one or both of them. So the factors that could affect or have been affecting trust over time in marriage, one more time, are...
Is number one, unrealistic expectations. Okay. Number two, lack of clarification and definition of exactly what it is that trust means to you. You're not explaining exactly what your needs are and what you want from the other person. Okay. Then, you know, clash in values, your core values, and ultimately your governing beliefs.
So what is it as a partner? Like, for instance, if I had any suspicions, what should I look out for to find out if my partner trusts me or not?
So the important thing is to always be self-aware and aware of your environment, aware of how you are feeling when something happens, right? Oftentimes when trust is broken, then people start to distance themselves because you begin to feel insecure, because security is what trust gives you. Okay. And so you don't feel a sense of security with that person. And so what you naturally and psychologically do is you withdraw. So you will start to withdraw psychologically, you start to withdraw emotionally, and then physically. Okay,
so psychologically first.
Yeah.
When you say psychologically, what does that mean?
You start to, you know, think this is not the kind of person that I should be with. Okay. You know, you start to form beliefs and philosophies, you know, around that person. You start to, you know, project upon that person. You start to assume.
Make
and
assumptions.
Then assumptions, you know, that, oh, because they've come back late from work, they're with somebody else. Okay. Because, you know, they don't have time to answer your questions. They're trying to hide something, you know, because, you know, you want quality time. They're not sitting down with you. Then it means that they're on the phone with somebody else. You know, you start to make assumptions. And those assumptions start to provoke emotions. Okay. Right? You know, and then you start to feel hurt.
So the withdrawal psychologically leads to the withdrawal emotionally.
And then that leads to the physical withdrawal.
Okay, so physical withdrawal now, let's just touch on that.
Yeah.
Physical withdrawal isn't like moving out of the house, I believe.
It starts from proximity.
Okay.
So you don't want to be in the person's space. You don't want to talk to the person. You know, that's where it starts from. Okay. Because you see, you've got a spiritual being, essence, you've got an emotional being, and you've got a physical being. Now, once you start to detach psychologically and emotionally, your spiritual and emotional beings start to repel each other and distance each other. And so the person starts to irritate you. Yeah. You know, when the person starts talking,
yeah,
you know,
whatever.
You know, and gradually, you know, those emotional things and psychological things start to distance you from the person. And then physically, you don't want to be in their space. Anymore. If you're married, you don't want them to touch you. Yeah. You don't want to have sex. At that point, you can't even kiss yourself.
Probably if someone is probably in a relationship now, they've probably noticed some of the signs of, maybe even if it's just the psychological withdrawal, not yet the emotional withdrawal at this stage. How can they catch it to stop it from leading somewhere else? How can we stop this trust from shattering completely?
I mean, the very first thing is you've got to be self-aware. Like I said, you've got to be aware of your environment. And then you know your spouse, right? Or your partner.
Or you're supposed to know.
Or you're supposed to know, right? But, you know, many don't. Then you see the change in reactions, you know, and behaviors. And that's the time when you need to start having conversations. Okay. What exactly is going on? You know, and then have open and honest conversations. And then when you start to talk and you start to communicate, right? You realize that, you know, there are, principally two parties involved in that relationship, but we often bring in third parties. Okay. So the two parties involved have to identify what they've done wrong and who the perpetrator is.